Imagine a place where history isn't just in books, it's alive in the very air you breathe. This is the Swahili Coast of East Africa. Picture the sun coming up over the blue-green waters of the Indian Ocean. The light hits the white sails of old-style dhows, boats that have sailed these seas for hundreds of years. The coastline goes on for miles, a beautiful strip of white sand beaches and green mangrove forests. This is a land where different parts of the world and different ways of life have met for over 1,000 years, making something totally new and wonderfully special. The story of this coast is a story of Africa's strong connection to the rest of the world. The sounds here tell their own story. You can hear the soft sound of waves hitting the shore, a steady, calming rhythm. In the old stone towns like Lamu or Zanzibar, the narrow paths echo with the shouts of sellers selling fresh fruit and nice-smelling spices. Kids' laughter fills the courtyards. The call to prayer from the old mosques goes out 5 times a day, a sound that has guided daily life for many generations. It's like a song made of human activity, nature, and faith, all mixed together. This isn't just noise, it's the music of a way of life built on trading, traveling, and shared traditions. And then there are the smells. The air itself is like a rich perfume, a mix of the salty sea breeze and the sweet smell of frangipani flowers. From the busy markets comes the smell of interesting spices. You can smell cloves, cinnamon, cardamom, and pepper. These were the valuable things that brought traders from all over the world. The smell of cooking fish and bubbling coconut curries floats from open doors, inviting you to try the tastes of Swahili food. This mix of smells tells you that you're in a place where the world came to trade, to share, and to build a new society together on the shores of Africa. This coast wasn't a lonely edge of a continent. It was a lively entrance, a busy meeting point where Africa met the world. For centuries, this was one of the most diverse places on Earth. People from Arabia, Persia, India, and even as far as China came here. They didn't just come to trade, they came to live. They married into local families, shared their ideas, and helped build the amazing stone cities that are still here today. The Swahili Coast is a strong reminder of Africa's important role as a main player in the big story of world history. A story we are only now starting to fully understand. The Indian Ocean wasn't a wall for the people of the Swahili Coast. It was their road to the world. And the secret to this road was a special natural thing, the monsoon winds. These weren't just any winds. They were winds that you could count on, strong air currents that blew across the huge ocean. For about half the year, the winds blew from the northeast, pushing ships from Arabia and India south towards the African coast. This was when traders would arrive, their ships full of goods from faraway lands. It was a time of excitement and chances, a season of coming together. Then, like clockwork, the winds would change direction. For the other half of the year, they blew from the southwest. This was the sign for the sailors and traders to start their long trip home. The same winds that brought them to Africa would now carry them back, their ships now heavy with Africa's valuable goods. This steady rhythm of the winds created a natural calendar for trading and traveling. It turned the Indian Ocean into a huge, organized network. This system allowed different cultures to stay in touch for a long time, making the Swahili Coast a main hub in a busy international community long before Europeans ruled the seas. The Swahili sailors were experts at this ocean. They built strong dhows with special triangular sails. These sails were perfectly made to catch the monsoon winds, letting sailors travel the huge distances with amazing skill. They understood the currents, the stars, and the seasons. Their knowledge was passed down from father to son, a valuable gift of sea expertise. These African sailors weren't just passively receiving trade, they were active participants, sailing their own ships to distant ports and playing a key role in connecting the economies of Africa, Asia, and the Middle East in a lively web of exchange. This steady connection shaped every part of life. It meant that the Swahili Coast was never alone. It was always open to new ideas, new ways of doing things, and new people. The monsoon winds brought not just goods, but also languages, religions, and customs. They brought Islam to the coast, which became a strong force that brought people together. They brought builders who helped design the beautiful stone buildings. This constant flow of people and culture, all moved by the wind, is what made the Swahili way of life so active, so rich, and so important for so many centuries. The ocean and its winds were the lifeblood of this great African civilization. From this ocean trade, amazing cities grew along the coast. These weren't just simple villages. They were powerful and rich city-states. Cities like Mombasa, Malindi, Lamu, and Zanzibar became places for business and culture. But maybe the most amazing of them all was Kilwa. A traveler in the 1300s, the famous Ibn Battuta, called it one of the most beautiful and well-built towns in the world. Kilwa was an island off the coast of what is now Tanzania. Its good location made it the southernmost main port, giving it control over the valuable gold trade coming from inside Africa. The rulers of Kilwa became incredibly rich. They built grand palaces and mosques from coral stone, a special way of building that defined the coast. The most famous of these is the Husuni Kubwa Palace. It was a huge building complex sitting on a cliff looking out at the ocean. It had over 100 rooms, a big 8-sided swimming pool, and courtyards for meeting foreign guests. This was a show of power and class, made to impress visiting traders and diplomats. The wealth that flowed into Kilwa wasn't hidden. It was shown off in the city's stunning buildings, a clear sign of its importance as a major world power. The source of all this wealth was trade. From inside Africa came a river of valuable goods. Gold, dug up in places like Great Zimbabwe, was the most important thing they sent out. Ivory from elephants was also very valuable in Asia for carving. Other things they sent out included animal skins, wood, and sadly, enslaved people. In return, the traders of Kilwa brought in fancy goods from all over the world. They brought beautiful silk and cotton clothes from India, amazing porcelain bowls and vases from China, and colorful glass beads from Persia. The markets of Kilwa were a dazzling sight of global business. Daily life in a city like Kilwa was diverse and lively. The Swahili traders, the rich people of the city, lived in large stone houses with fancy carved wooden doors. They wore fine imported clothes and ate from Chinese porcelain. The city was a mix of languages, with Swahili being the common language for people from many different backgrounds. The wealth from trade supported artists, smart people, and religious leaders. Kilwa made its own coins, a sign of its independence and money power. For a time, it was the queen of the coast, a shining example of African success and global connection. The word Swahili itself tells a story of cultures mixing. It actually comes from the Arabic word Sahil, which means coast. The people of the coast, the Swahili, they created this special culture that was a beautiful mix of its African roots and ideas from across the ocean. The base of this culture was definitely African. Its language, its social ways, and many of its main beliefs came from the Bantu-speaking people who had lived in the area for hundreds of years. This African heritage was the strong thread that held the whole cultural fabric together, giving it its unique identity and strength. Into this African fabric, threads from Arabia, Persia, and India were woven. The biggest influence was the arrival of Islam, brought by Arab traders. The religion gave a shared faith and a legal system that helped manage the complicated international trade. Mosques became the centers of community life, and Arabic writing was used to write the Swahili language. But you see, this wasn't just simply replacing one culture with another. The Swahili people took in and changed these influences, making them their own. They mixed Islamic beliefs with their own traditional spiritual practices, creating a type of Islam that was uniquely East African. This mixing is seen everywhere in Swahili life. Just look at the language. Kiswahili is a Bantu language at its heart, in its grammar and structure. But its words are full of words borrowed from Arabic, Persian, and even Portuguese. It's a perfect language mirror of the culture's history. And then there's the food. Swahili cooking mixes African ingredients like coconuts, fish, and cassava with spices from Asia like cloves, cinnamon, and saffron. Dishes like pilau rice and coconut curries are a delicious result of this blend, a taste of history on a plate. This mixing created a culture that was both African and worldly. Even the homes tell this story. The classic Swahili stone house had a design that faced inward, with rooms arranged around a central courtyard, a feature common in Middle Eastern buildings. But the most famous part is the elaborately carved wooden door. These doors were symbols of a family's importance and wealth. The fancy carvings often mixed geometric patterns inspired by Islamic art with local African designs, such as lotus flowers or chain links. It was a public statement of a family's identity, proudly African, deeply connected to the Islamic world, and actively involved in the trade of the Indian Ocean. This blend is the true genius of Swahili civilization. For centuries, the Indian Ocean trade was a world of working together and helping each other, guided by the rhythm of the monsoon winds. But, at the very end of the 1400s, a new and disruptive force arrived. In 1498, the Portuguese explorer Vasco da Gama sailed around the southern tip of Africa and into this peaceful world. The Portuguese didn't come to join the existing trade network. They came to take control of it. They had advanced cannons and powerful warships, and they weren't afraid to use them. Their arrival marked the beginning of a violent and dramatic change for the Swahili Coast. The Portuguese saw the rich Swahili city-states not as partners, but as rivals to be conquered. They were shocked and jealous of the riches they found. They wanted to grab control of the gold trade and have a monopoly over the sea routes to India. One by one, they attacked the great cities. They bombed Kilwa, robbed Mombasa, and forced their will through brute strength. They built huge stone forts like Fort Jesus in Mombasa to control the coastline and enforce their rule. For the first time in centuries, the Swahili Coast's gateway to the world became a gate controlled by a hostile foreign power. Life under Portuguese rule was hard. The old trade networks were broken. The Portuguese tried to change where the gold and other goods went for their own benefit, often leaving the Swahili cities poor. The spirit of cooperation in the Indian Ocean was replaced by fighting and unfair use. But you see, the Swahili people fought back bravely for nearly 200 years, often teaming up with Omani Arabs to fight against the European invaders. By the late 1600s, they managed to drive the Portuguese from most of the coast. But the golden age of the independent city-states was over. The world had changed forever. Despite the centuries of trouble, the legacy of the Swahili Coast continues. It stands as a powerful reminder that Africa has always been a vital part of world history, a center of new ideas, business, and culture. The Swahili language is now spoken by millions across East and Central Africa, a language of unity and communication. The ancient stone towns, with their unique buildings and rich history, are now UNESCO World Heritage Sites, treasures for all of humanity. The story of the Swahili Coast teaches us that cultures aren't still or alone. They grow and thrive through connection and exchange. It is a story of strength, adapting, and the lasting power of an African civilization that looked out across the ocean and shaped the world.